So, to keep it short, a video I made a good while ago that was about me remaking Snakewood's designs decided to see how the extrovert life looks like, and ended up hitting 100k views quite quickly. Game flooded with multiple comments asking for more, and getting attracted like a fly to shit for a good video topic, I just left the decision for the next one to you, for which we ended up with Pokemon Sweet. Man, I love democracy. Anyways, let's get straight to it. Okay, I get the thing you're going to do, but what the hell even is Pokemon Sweet? I hear a person conveniently saying to get the video moving. To answer any like-minded people's thoughts and build up to the main event, let's quickly go over the ROM hack's history. Pokemon Sweet is a ROM hack that was developed by Frame225 and helped by Chanini, which was released on July 27, 2014, and gave the fanbase a whole new take on the stereotypical Pokemon adventure. Like its name suggests, Pokemon Sweet presents us a multitude of various mechanics and features, which of course are related to various tasty foods being inspirations for a whole new type chart. Reimagined Pokemon with candy-based designs and taking on the name of Pokesweets instead, while having all of this take place in a location that has diabetes the word of the week all the time. Now, although the game clearly still has a lot of Fire Red elements in the game, with things like the overall map layout and some Pokesweets being clearly barely changed, but still having 150 new designs and completely new types to play around with was more than enough to provide enough entertainment for players, hence solidifying itself as one of the best hacks at its time, only to go a step above for its sequel with 386 total Pokesweets, Megas, and overall higher quality. But that's for another day, so let's roll back to the first entry we got and finally get a taste of this video's main gimmick. I'll take the mascot, then randomly select 4 other Fakemon from the roster, just like I did for Snakewood, and remake them. And to make this that much more special, I'll put the redesigns back into the actual ROM, which will give us an opportunity to get a glance at a full remake. On that note, let's begin this chapter with deciding on which Pokesweets to remake with a method that can be easily compared to throwing darts, while being biased and semi-blindfolded. Don't ask me how that works. We're starting out with Mawile and a Banana's offspring as a warm-up, or rather an entree for the other sweets until we hit the big boy on the title screen. So let's finally take a quick peek at Mawnana and learn a bit more about it. Like you probably couldn't guess, its type and ability is Banana. Ability-wise, no clue what that means. Type-wise, it's strong against lemon and lime, but weak against apples, oranges, and lemons, which out of context sounds weirdly hilarious. Moving on to stats, surprisingly enough, Mawnana actually has quite a tweaked base stat total compared to the original. In this case, having plus 20 total stat points, though objectively having a much worse stat spread in comparison. Last but not least, we can't forget about the Pokédex equivalent for this hack, which for today will be the cleverly called Cookbook. Mawnana's entry reads as follows. Its banana hair has a number of applications. It is a cannon, mouth, and even a helicopter all at once. Huh, who knew a banana could act as a Swiss knife if you use it correctly? Anyways, with that now out of the way, let's get to actually remaking it. Messing around with the proportions of the body and pose until getting a satisfying result, while expanding on the banana concept, I quickly move on to getting the coloring in process done to have an easier time of identifying any parts of the sprite that would need fixing, which allows me to apply details much more freely. Closing off with an exercise in separating all the moving parts to make the animating process much easier for myself, I end off with doing exactly that. And before I reveal the final Gen 5 version, let's actually encounter and witness the fake Mon in its origin game with a fresh coat of paint. With that being said, who wants to see its final form? Although it's nothing close to the mighty beast that we'll see later on in the video, I would say that this still turned out pretty well. But now that we're familiarized with the process, let's begin moving faster, starting with... Wasting no time, let's jump into the coverage of the outdated meme-sounding Pokesweet Liganium, rocking a sweet combo of raspberry and lime, while having an anticlimactic chlorophyll as the ability. Moving on to compare the stats with the vanilla version, pun intended, Liganium has the same total, yet a different stat spread that focuses more on bulkier HP special offense instead of a defensive tank build. Turning to the lore aspect, let's see what the cookbook entry has to say for us. Licorice flowers grow on its back. These are said to be the sweetest plants ever grown. Licorice and sweet are the two things I thought I would never hear in the same sentence, yet here we are. So, time to see what now we can cook up in the design department. Seeing how its pre-evolution is more based on the red licorice string type of candy, I thought I could play it safe and switch it up a bit at the same time. So let's give going the same route as Leaforest a shot. Beginning with a sketch that heavily resembles Meganium, only to swiftly start straying away from that exact design, I start incorporating more and more of the red licorice in locations that have a big role in Meganium's design, like the flower and antennas. Then finally apply colors to actually showcasing them being the specifically mentioned type of candy. Applying the personally most satisfying details of minor color tweaks, outlines and shadows, the sprite is finally done after an animating process you get to skip. Already at the ROM revisiting segment, let's see how it actually looks in-game. Now, not only does it look more original compared to the initial one, but it also fits the line much better, which I'm sure the animated sprite can back up for me. Okay, I think I'm starting finally to understand what they meant with the licorice and sweetness comment before. But I'm sure it gets more delightful the further we go. Probably going to be the one that makes me hungry is the most. Slugnut is one that's changed the most on the data side of the design. This time running only a mono grape type and single ability that doesn't even match any of the previous ones, while evolving 16 entire levels sooner than its Lava Oreo counterpart. Shit, This actually got me hungry. Only to have 20 more stat points over the regular definitely makes me think that this is tuned the most on this side of the field. Unless Smorelax has something to say about that? Well, we have to wait and see until we get to that one. But let's get back to the donut at hand. Before the actual redesign, let's read what the label says for this off-putting donut. Its donut is filled with delicious jelly. Makes for a relaxing, tasty ride, if a rather slow ride. Very gooey. Alright, I think I'll keep the questions to myself and instead just get to the spriting process. Thinking there's no other perfect thing to implement into the design other than probably the most iconic donut, which is the one you almost always see Homer Simpson eating, time to make Slugnut much more special. Starting with the already repetitive sentence of mentioning the sprite proportions, I make sure to add in a bite from the donut to tie the whole thing together and start filling colors, while desperately trying to make it not look like the donut is dipped in sentient chewed up bubblegum, which was probably not a problem up until this point. My bad. Detailing the main point of the sprite by trying to get as many sprinkle colors as possible from what I can due to a 16 color palette limit, I close off this segment with some last touches and mentioning the animating segment skip. Without further ado, say hi to the redesigned Slugnut in its original habitat. Though let me do one better for you. And just like that, hunger has struck again. Let's move on before I eat something I'll regret. Seeming as a pretty simple design at first, which is only so late in this video because of the unsuspectedly great redesign I ended up making for this trick-or-treater. Pumpkinete is a surprise sleeper hit that I'm sure you'll end up liking as much as I do after its dedicated segment. But to actually reach that point, let's see what it itself actually offers. Jumping into the summary part of this fake mod, we quickly can start to see signs that this version of Pumpkinete is actually inferior compared to the original. More specifically, Runaway is easily worse than any of Pumpkinete's possible abilities. The base stats not only have a lower stat total, but also has a worse stat distribution. And worst of all, its growth rate is a whole stage worse. How could they? But before we pull out all of our hair about this injustice, let's cover the cookbook entry before the remake. It has the power to grow by giving its foes a good fright. Fear is its power source. Its maximum size is unknown. The amount of restraint I need to not make a dick joke right now is insane. Let's just grow. Fuck. Messing around with the size of its head, oh goddammit. I create the rest of the body while using the regular Pumpkinete as a crutch, only to eventually stray away from the colors and other main design aspects like the mouth zipper that Pumpkinete has to come up with, aspects that combined the original Pumpkinete spear-based factor, while also adding in candy corns to keep that Pokemon sweet theme intact. Playing around with the colors to give it a homegrown and candy-based pumpkin feel at the same time, eventually I get to a point where everything just comes together nicely, and finally gets made after some good old animating. Time to see the results in its hometown. Well, isn't that awesome? Call me biased all you want, but this goes harder than all those dick jokes I avoided. Well, fuck. Great. Now my memory of this remake is tainted by bad dick jokes. Let's just move on to the main star of the show instead. Finally, getting to the one that you probably got tired of me teasing by this point, it's time to see and learn about that guy on the digital box art. Now, although its stat total takes a major drop from Smorelax's 540 stat total to a pitiful 400, our marshmallow-bodied friend here is not a monotyped Pokemon, but instead rocks a duo of chocolate and vanilla for its typing, for which both have interesting properties in battle, in the result being weak only to chocolate, while also being weak to the exact same thing. Alright, it gets wackier type properties wise instead of a better and more balanced stat distribution. But what else makes it that special? Besides having its battle prowess having been paid for with exposure on the game's cover, instead of actual pay in stat points, dude's constantly on the grind. Its body is a thick gooey mass of marshmallow coated in rich chocolate. It never stops adding to its mass. Well, I guess just star power is enough to make you the center point of a video, huh? Or the redesign is just that good? Well, time to find out. Having an asymmetrical idea at first with Smorelax being a large melted marshmallow abomination on a stick at first, eventually I ended up making it much more symmetrical and made the stick a literal centerpiece. Then incorporated all of the other Snorlax's main design attributes in a way that makes sense for a s'more design, eventually stumbling on the perfect colors to trigger drooling yet again. Then finally showcased Smorelax's actual marshmallow properties by making it stretchy and wobbly in the animation. After actually getting you to take a look at me animating the sprite, here's the final result of the last Pokesuite that's remade and in their original game. But we cannot conclude the video without... So just like that, we're finally done here. Thank you for actually enduring all of my silliness throughout this video, and thanks for sticking around until the end. Let me know your favorite redesign, follow me on Twitter to get early sneak peeks and other related stuff, but as for the video, subscribe, like, and stay tuned for more.